So welcome both. Got it. So Admin, the first question is for you. With your extensive experience and of course in project management, what would your advice be for international students who is starting out? What should they be doing now to prepare for a career in project management?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for having me. And great to see so many people join and so much interest in the world of project management. And I'm truly happy to be speaking to this audience. I think for those starting off, if you are interested in the role of managing, planning, managing, reporting on work, essentially, dubbed as project management, because I can simplify that as essentially we are in the business of planning work and managing work, reporting on it. And so if that is the, from a project management perspective, that is, of course, your interest. What you really need to take a look at to see, number one, if you have past experience in any field that you can parlay into project management. Because a lot of people say, well, how do I kind of get in? And there was a question posted earlier, how do I get in? I don't really have experience in the space. But project management is all about having experience in 3 to 4 key areas. Do you have great communication skills? Because communication is the biggest thing project managers do. Second, do you have good planning skills? Have you planned work before? It doesn't have to be projects, but have you planned work before? And if you've taken a large body of work and chunked it down and essentially put together a plan with some times and dates and so on, do you have the ability to follow up of tasks with others? Do you have the ability to work in a collaborative work environment but don't really necessarily may have direct reports, but you need to influence others, right? So do you have examples that you can think of in your work? It doesn't have to be project management. In your work, where you've had experiences where you have influenced change or influenced others to do things. So you got to kind of draw on some of that experiences. Have you have experience reporting on work, to your leaders or to others or to your team? How have you done it? Have you an example of that? Right. So people think about project management and they kind of get tunnel vision into it. So, well, I don't have that. But if you kind of slice it up, then you can draw on some of your past experiences in the spaces. So you can use that to leverage to land roles. There are entry roles within project management. So project coordinators, project analysts, project control officers. A lot of companies are looking for that. They're looking for that basic experience in those areas, not necessarily project management experience for you to essentially join, if you will. And second, for those who don't have any experience, work experience in the past, are new and are students of project management. I think for those, you need to essentially draw on your work experience from school, your projects, if you've led projects with other team members and such, and perhaps even any expertise that you may have in a particular vertical or particular industry, where you may have done a co-op or a summer term or something like that you can draw upon. So I think you got to start to take a look at it from that different perspective, and rather than actually kind of getting right into, well, I don't really have PM experience, so I can't get started. So I hope some of those tips may be helpful.
I think that's wonderful advice, because sometimes as students, it's so overwhelming and you think to yourself, project management, I don't have it, but I really do love the fact that you broke it down into either work experience or school experience, and then breaking it into different skills and competencies such as communication and teamwork and problem solving and whatnot. So I think that's really great to break it down for the client. Fantastic. And how they can translate that onto their resume, not necessarily just project management. It's so big. So let's talk about credentials and designations, because everyone is very curious about that, specifically in Canada and Ontario. So, what advice would you have on getting designations in project management, and which ones are key in getting employed? So which one as a student to say, yes, that's the one that's going to help me get a job?
Yeah. So, I think somebody's posted first of all, congratulations to Punjan. Passing the CAPM exam, so that's great. There's a post in the chat there, so thank you for sharing that with us. So you've got, of course, the PMI certifications, right? So the Certified Associate Project Manager, and then the PMP, which is a Project Management Professional. Of course, the CAPM is the entry level one that has a different set of requirements versus the PMP does, and PMP is, of course, a lot more stringent, if you will. What we're seeing is also, and I know David probably will talk about this, is that certification and more in the agile space as well, to be able to understand how the non-structured work now happens in organizations, especially if you are in the technology sector, if you will. So you've got the categorization of the PMI, the world of PMI, and then you've got this agile and Scrum and others in the space. And depending on which industry you're essentially kind of getting into. So if you're in tech, there are companies who are looking for some agile certifications. Some of them don't have a lot of prerequisite. Maybe it might be a bit easier to get to. And I'm sure David's going to share more about that because he's got a lot more expertise on that product side. But then on the project PMI space, CAPM is probably the entry level one. It does require some effort to go through the certification process, but it's definitely recommended that you consider that. With that said, though, however, not all organizations are looking for that as a mandatory requirement. It's a nice to have requirement for the CAPM and for the junior roles. Like if you go into project management or whatnot, more senior roles, of course, yes, those will be mandatory because you are competing in a space where pretty much everybody applying for the role would have one. But from an entry-level perspective, you're getting into as a project analyst or project coordinator or project control officer, not all organizations require that as a mandatory role. So I think what you need to do is kind of, as you're kind of searching to see and assess which organization that you want to work with and work at, and try to understand what their requirements are for some of those roles. There are a lot of organizations in Canada, from a different sector perspective, in construction or healthcare or tech, as they hire, when they post their jobs. If you're looking through them, you will start to kind of get an idea of what kind of roles they hire for, and if that particular organization is more leaning towards certification as either a mandatory or an optional requirement.
Okay. So just to sum up, so CAPM is usually for junior roles, and project management, PMP, is usually for those with management and little bit more senior roles. But specifically, I think who are the job seekers really need to search for the organization, what type of requirements they need, and then they really need to field which areas that they can go into. So agiles, PMP, and whatnot. So it depends on also the industry. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And with all of the certifications out there, I mean, you were talking about agile, and you're talking about being a Scrum Master and PMP and CAP. And so, David, this question is for you as well, because I know that you are also a certified Scrum Master as well, and a certified product owner as well. So what is the difference? Like, can you please, let us know, for somebody who's completely new, what is agile? What is Scrum? What is PMP? What is all of that?
Oh, thank you. Now, one important thing to understand is, let's go back many years ago when people started building things. So let's build a house, let's build a skyscraper, let's build an automobile. So at that moment, they had to find techniques and ways to make things organized. And that's somehow how the project management techniques were arising. Now, with all of that, there's an institution called Project Management Institute that created a book of knowledge and a certification for project management professionals, so they can say, I have a credential, I know, I have some skills, I have some background, I can demonstrate my knowledge in project management. That's the PMP. And it's important to say, and I echo what Amin was saying, PMP is still, and it will be, very relevant in many different fields. So anticipating part of the answer is, take a look on the job positions that you want, because even if it's for technology, they might ask for PMP certification. So there's a trend in a market, but still, I encourage everyone to take a look on the job positions you like. So let's say you like technology. And as you keep searching and looking for the things, you may see PMP as one of the required certifications, but you may be exposed to the agile environment as well. Now, building software nowadays is very different than building a house 100 years ago. Now, why is that important? Because you won't use the same tools, techniques, and methods to build a software than you were building a house. And that's essentially the difference. So there are a lot of different components. You introduce more collaboration, flexibility, accepting some change requirements very late in a project, where in the traditional way of project management, that didn't exist. Now, important to say, things are evolving, and you will see, even if you choose to become a PMP, you will see some agile techniques in there. And if you decide to become a Scrum Master, you will see things from the traditional project management approach, which is perfectly fine. And that's where you're going to find some hybrid methodologies out there. But what are the very common and desired certifications? So I don't like the word shortcut, but some people think it's a shortcut. Say, oh, let me become a Scrum Master because it's just a 2-day training or it's just a test. So it is shorter and sometimes demand less effort than the PMP, but at the same time, it will require some experience from you. So Scrum Master certifications, it's a great one. If you want to go to a scaled environment, so you have SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework. Kanban is another one that is very popular nowadays. Kanban Management Professional from Kanban University, and some others out there. Again, I would say encourage you to make a pull system, start looking for some position that you would like to apply, check what are the requirements, and then go for your certifications. But those are the most common ones.
I think that's great because a lot of times students can go into LinkedIn and see either a company or a person who is working in the role that they aspire to, and look at what their designation or credentials are and see and do that research to say, hey, that's where I'd like to aspire to. Let's see what certification education that they have. Let me go try to do that. Now, if they were going to start out, I put a link to the PMI website here. Are there any other resources that job seekers in our audience can go and do a little bit of research, in addition to going to LinkedIn and looking at someone who has a career that they aspire to? So any resources that you would recommend?
There are. It's very common for you to see some annual reports from those methodologies. So if you go to Kanban University website, you're going to see a report from Kanban, and it's going to basically talk about the adoption of Kanban worldwide. If you go to Agile websites and some other organizations, I will recall them. I don't recall the exact name at the moment. I'll bring it back in a moment. But you will see some Agile reports out there. So as you go to those different websites, you're going to see lots of not only resources so that you can learn about the methodology, but also about the adoption challenges. Why are they using those tools and techniques to make things more relevant and useful to the environment they are.
Right. Great advice. I just put the Kanban University onto our chat function in case you wanted to look at some resources.
A moment. Mm-hmm.
So David, just going back here, because you've worked globally, you've worked in North America, Latin America, Asia, everywhere in Europe. What is your experience when it comes to which industry sector and what type of employer require agile certification? So what sector, what industry, and what type of employer do you see that is in demand for agile training and certification?
Somehow it relates to a question that was asked on the Q&A. Now, Canada is like some very specific countries out there. It's a particular country that you not only need to have experience, but you have to prove some Canadian experience as well. Okay, so it doesn't have to be necessarily paid experience. You can volunteer to do some work. You can collaborate with some NGO. You can help a college. You can help. You can do something, but it's important to have some Canadian experience. So great if you have 20 years of experience out there, but try to do something local. That's my very first best recommendation, especially because I came from abroad. Now, that said, if you are in the GTA, you're gonna look essentially for service industries. So you will have lots of opportunity for software development industries, IT, and some others, especially related to technology. Those are the ones that are demanding more and more professionals with agile skills. Okay, and that starts usually with the Scrum Master and Product Owner part. So if you're not that technical, you may choose the business side. So a product owner is a good one to pursue. If you're not a technical, but you want to help managing some work, Kanban is a great one as well. Now, I would say in the last year, more and more organizations have been talking about scaling what they do. Usually, if you're starting, you won't be exposed to those opportunities just yet. But if you want to prepare yourself for the next 3 to 5 years, or even 10 years, you may be looking for opportunities like lean portfolio management. You may be looking for safe, scaled, agile framework, Scrum at scale. Those would provide you the very next step.
Okay, I think that's great. Especially there is somebody on the chat who said they were safe certified as well, a safe Scrum Master. Glad that he is here, glad that they are here and looking forward to joining a great team. So I guess it's always, how do I get a job once I get certified? But what are your tips? I know, getting that certification is one, and I mean, you were talking about also the competency and the showing, the demonstrating all of these skills that employers are looking for. What would you say your advice would be? So, okay, they've done their research, they know what certification they need. How to really get employers interested in me as a job seeker? What advice would you say?
I would say start building a network. That's what's going to help you to get there. So let's say that you like what I said. Email me, connect with me on LinkedIn and say, David, can we have a virtual coffee? And really, guys, this is what you have to do. Okay. Now, you may create lots of resumes, send it over, but try as much as you can to connect with people. That's what's going to help you. Now, not only those virtual coffees as well, but also going to different fairs. Now, especially after the pandemic, now we are having more fairs, opportunity to network and be there, talk to people, show up. That's how you're going to start knowing people. And very soon, opportunities will land. Now, it is fine if you don't have an extensive experience background, because it is totally okay. And many of those things are new. Let's take, for example, very recent Chat GPT from OpenAI. So everyone is somehow exposed to the same and new technology at the same time, and everyone has the same level of experience. So now, how can you leverage those certifications that you have with some AI knowledge that you may acquire in the last few months? So I believe this is going to be a trend, and these will help a lot to streamline work. So have conversations, share your ideas, and say, oh, I learned how to do some retrospectives using ChatGPT. I know how to find new opportunities or get some new ideas to resolve some problems. So try to connect with the things you love and the new certifications you get. Have a conversation, and you're going to land an opportunity very soon. It's very
I love
qualitative, but you're going to get there.
You definitely will get there. I put David's LinkedIn post for anyone who wants to reach out to David. Thank you very much, David, for offering that. And I challenge the audience to really go and reach out to David. And then for your advice, what would your advice be for job seekers? Because they've got that certification now they have an idea, but now what? How do I really get employers' interest?
Yeah, so if you are a student PMI member, you can actually search my webinar that I did. I think this was like almost like a year and a half ago with PMI's recorded. It's online. It's talking about the role of AI in project management, and will AI take over project management jobs? And I actually provided a very interesting perspective. So what's happening with AI, and I think as ChatGPT piece that David mentioned as well, is that those individuals in the space that are not embracing AI are going to find challenges keeping their job or finding jobs. I think, and so learning technologies that will help you work better, work more efficiently, and do less with more are things that employers are looking for. So when you are coming across, and traditional resumes are not going to get eyeballs for you for the resumes, right? So the traditional resumes are good for people who have a lot of experience in depth, and they apply and they have big brands and big names on the resumes and deep experiences, and that works for them. But for people that are on this call that are trying to get in or trying to get attention from employers, you need to look for non-traditional ways, right? So number one, learn the technologies that others may not pick up on, right? So those that are currently employed and they're becoming stagnant and they're not picking up on technologies where these AI tools that a lot of employers are starting to now implement, that shows the employer that you are joining the organization to do more with less and using technology and tools to deliver things faster. And a lot of roles within project management are analytical type roles, right? But what we end up doing is we become a reporter because we're trying to collect data and updates from everyone. Well, if you learn technology and software that can actually do that for you and show the employer that you can actually, on the job, when you join, you will use tools to do all of that automatically and better and faster, and use your time to do more analytical work. That means, look at the updates and then answer tough questions from the team members to say, well, what does this mean? And why is this update this? And why are you yellow? And so on and so forth in terms of status updates. Then the employer will say, well, you're going to add value, right? So that's number one, essentially learning the technologies and tools. And these tools are project management tools. These are task management tools that employers are picking up on. Right. So there are lots of tools that are making things and workflows and automations better. Things, software tools like Monday.com, Smartsheet. These are some of the software that we sell and we implement with some of our large customers. But there are so many others out there. You've got Asana, you've got ClickUp and things like that. And you don't have to become an expert. You just have to get a free trial account, use it for a week or two and get used to it so you can speak about this. And you can speak about the general notion of making things better and making things automated. And the last point is, as I mentioned, the typical resume is not going to get the eyeball. So look at alternative ways of getting in front of employers. Why not send a resume with a link to a video? So the employer can click on that, and then you have a 30-second video that plays and tells the employer what you're all about. And then also a lot of resumes without a chronological resume is not going to work, because the chronological resume requires you to put your work experiences. You might want to flip that over. And I'm sure Devant team can coach you on that. Flip that over and make it a project-based resume, right? So you're focusing on what project that you've done and what you've accomplished in that work. So hopefully some of those tips are helpful.
Great tips and great tools, like you were saying, where Smartsheet, Monday.com, and Asana wonderful starting points. And like you said, there are so much more out there, but great starting points for people to really do that research. I love the technology and using it to make it more efficient and effective. And it's funny how ChatGPT will be used during your work, but it can even help you in your interview process and your answering those tough questions. So you can prompt ChatGPT to ask you those tough questions if you put in the job description itself and your resume, and then they'll combine and see what they can do to create a interview questions for you. So great tips on the tools itself and using technology for efficiency, but even for your job search itself. Someone put in your talk, I'm in here, in I hope that's the correct one. It's the role of project practitioners. Okay, yep. That's wonderful. And I mean, it's okay for people to reach out to you on LinkedIn as well, because I will put your LinkedIn profile for them to reach out. Yeah, that's okay, fantastic. I will put that in the messaging and chat as well. Now I think it's time to go to the question Q&A section, because there were a lot of questions out there, and I do want to make sure that we are answering your questions here. We have a few of them open and some of them answered as well. But one of the questions, Rafael, was about project management and certification. I think both of you have answered that question. And then another client or job seeker says they're looking for some guidance to decide, have interest in finance and project.
Sorry to interrupt. Rafael, I think we haven't answered yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I want to work as a project manager in organization of large-scale sporting events, that's correct. What kind of certifications should I get? I'll leave that for both of you.
let me jump in, and I must say I haven't worked with any sporting event organization, but with some similar multimedia, TV, or event organizations, hospitality. I would say managing technology is one of the key skills you're gonna somehow require to help them. Now, I don't know the specifics, but I would say neither do they. and if you know about technology and how you make the experience even better, I think it's a good way to start. But maybe Amin can share something else. I'm not an expert on that part. Apologize.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not necessarily expert in the sporting field. It's a very niche space, though, right? So one of the things you have to kind of think about is, as you're starting off, or getting into a career within project management, you may want to start looking at industries that have wide and deep availabilities and wide and deep presence in Canada, right? Sports is much bigger in the US. Canada, not as much, and it's a very tight niche, right? So it gets very competitive in that space. So I would actually think about it that way. Maybe just reconsider that, and think about maybe industries where there are a lot more opportunities. Like in Canada, if you're in Ontario, yeah, construction number one, and construction, which may not be as regulated construction work, because some construction project management requirements is regulated, like you have to have an engineering degree or civil engineering and mechanical or something like that. And if you don't have some of that, or sometimes they even ask for PEng. So, but there are a lot of construction roles that don't require regulated or a construction certification. Second is healthcare. That's huge in Ontario. So a lot of healthcare organizations, hospitals, big pharma hire project managers. So those two sectors are massive within Ontario. Then, of course, the third sector is tech sector, but tech sector has a lot more competition, right? In that space. But that's more agile and Scrum as well, or depending on the organization. So I would say think about different industry in that sense. So, and yeah, sorry, not too much exposure in the sports end of it.
But great answers, and I think I think both of your comments before is just going out there and networking and reaching out. And the more that you ask, the more that you get answers, and eventually you will get an answer to that specific question for sure. I have a question from Janky. Actually, I'm asking this and I need guidance to decide. This individual is
it's a second question to the previous one that I answered for her. She was asking about, she has a CPA from, I think, India, or sorry, she has accounting background from India. And now she's thinking, okay, does she go CPA route or project management? I said, well, it depends on what's her interest in. Without knowing Janky, I can't tell her what she should focus on. But maybe Janky, you should, there are assessments that you can take that kind of allows you to kind of get to know your personality a bit better in terms of which types of role that you would be more inclined towards. But you can also combine it. The combination will be interesting because there are lots of financial institutions, not necessarily banks, but financial institutions generally hire project managers. So you could use your finance and accounting knowledge and the project management training to then, apply for that. And I think that a lot of financial institutions will really appreciate that, because then you can talk their lingo and essentially understand the industry better. So maybe something you might want to consider, looking at that. When I say financial industry, it doesn't mean just the big 5 banks in Canada, right? There are lots of startups in the space. There are retailers who actually are now banks, right? I don't know if you knew, but Walmart Canada has a bank, right? Canadian Tire actually has a bank. They're registered banks because they issue credit cards. So, and they hire people in their banking business. So you may want to consider that. And yeah, they are card issuers, exactly. So you may want to consider those areas as well. Sometimes people just don't make the connection, but it's important to know that. So thank you.
Well said. And David?
I just want to make a comment on what Amin just said. Now, usually when people say, oh, should I focus on Agile first, then the PMP certification? I would say Agile is quicker than the PMP. Now, comparing CPA and PMP, I may say PMP might be quicker. So as a short term, since you have the financial experience already, maybe you should get exposed. And if you like learning, it's a great part for you to dive in and learn. Now, the CPA might be a mid-term goal for your career, but still, it's a fantastic and amazing and important opportunity in Canada. Yeah.
Great comments. And we have another question from Priyanka that says, how can I get hands-on experience in relevant projects to get the experienced project coordinator or manager role? And how do I apply for co-op and prepare my resume accordingly? What are your thoughts on that, about hands-on experience, especially coming as a student?
I can just add to that, maybe then David, if you like. So a couple of things, right? So when you're a student, you are working on projects as a student, for within your team and for your requirements for your course curriculum. So that's right there. Sometimes you don't think about that, but that is actually a project, and you can actually use that within your resume, that you actually led a team to implement this or build something or as a product or service as a result. So that's important. Second is co-op, and a lot of organizations, would bring you in as co-op, sometimes paid, sometimes unpaid, to get that experience. I just posted a link for the summer jobs program for Canada. The requirements have changed. They hire up to 30 years old as well. So if you are new to the country and going through the training, then you can certainly consider that. There are 140,000 jobs that are being posted this year. We used to be a Canada Summer Jobs employer a few years ago, but our business has changed, so we don't do that anymore. But a really good opportunity to get some experience, if you will. I don't know if what David has to share further.
Oh, David, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. What I was going to say is sometimes finding who has succeeded is a good way to start. So maybe start building those connections, networking, and asking people, so what did you do? How did you get there? They are happy, most of them, to share how they got to that position. Now, that is for you to understand the path and the journey. And the other part is how do you build a good resume? Again, as per some support and others. And if you're not really in to build a resume, networking again will save your life. Okay.
Right. And Devant, we help prepare resumes accordingly. I did also put into the chat paid internships. You can look at Career Edge as well as Ripened. Check these out. They may or may not, but hopefully you can look into getting that internship and that experience, Priyanka, to get you started. In addition to, what he was talking about, Canada Summer Jobs, and David just talking about as well, networking pieces and looking at someone who's actually done the job itself. Okay, so do we have any other questions? It looks like all of the questions have been answered. Let's see if, I think, okay, great. I think Ashish was asking about certification in construction or agriculture, and then I think you put CAPDEM was a good start. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Let's see, any other questions itself? I think that is it that we have. Oh, we have one more. Do either of you offer mentorship? So David and Min, do you offer mentorship? Great question.
I don't have, essentially, just given my time, I don't necessarily have time for doing a formal mentorship, but if you have, anytime you have a question or want to reach out, happy to answer and give any advice or any guidance. If you're applying for an organization and as part of my network, and if I am able to make a referral or recommend you for a particular role, I'm happy to do that as well.
And before pandemic, yes, I was very active on that part. And as Amin somehow mentioned, business changed, which kind of demanded more of my time. I do plan to continue what I started a long time ago, but not now. But again, I'm very happy to provide some answers, help you connect with some people that are in my current network. But not limited to this, may look at, there are lots of groups in the GTA and outside of GTA with people with the same interest of you have, and they try to, there are some other professionals that they offer mentorship. I will do so, not yet. If you connect with me, you will know when I start doing that again.
That's right. I think there are a lot of professional groups out there. I think Meetup is another one that you can go in, as well as LinkedIn, but do some research out there and see what you can do to network. And also ask, if when you're meeting a mentor or someone that you're talking to, just ask, is there anyone else that they can introduce you to, or they think that you should be talking to, so that it's exponential. It's not only one person. It really broadens your network, and they will direct you to a person and another person, so you can really expand your network. We do have on the chat function a question about skills. What skills need to be demonstrated when applying for internships? So if you were hiring interns or anyone, I guess, job seekers, what skills do you think employers are really looking at?
I think the same ones, similar ones that I've mentioned in the beginning of the chat to someone. I think really, the being able to work in a team environment, especially now remote work, right? That's a lot of organizations are looking for, is how do you work differently in a remote setting, right? So being, there are different skill sets, right, that are required to work virtually than in a personal one-on-one setting, right? So remote work. Second is how do you collaborate and work with teams? Third is ability to plan work, plan and track and manage, and then leveraging tools and technology to do that more efficiently and better. Because of remote work, employers are looking for more and more the ability to be a self-starter, self-learner, because your manager is not there next to you or ready available to walk into their cubicle or their office or right? So they are more looking for, or how can you be a more self-motivated, self-starter type of an individual to be able to pick on things on your own. If you need something, be able to go, be resourceful to go find answers rather than looking for the managers, because it's remote work, so you're gonna have to keep looking for them or pinging them or Teams or Slack or whatever the communication channels are to get their attention, versus in the past where it's more in person, you could just walk over, right? So you have to basically show some of that skills in terms of how you've done that. And a lot of you guys are taking courses online, so you could parlay that back and saying, look, you've been working in Teams environment all remotely and virtually with your teams, and you've been able to prove that. So just those are some of my 2 cents.
Great. Those are great suggestions. David, what are your thoughts on the skills that employers are looking for?
Additionally to what Amin said, I think one of the key things is, especially that you're new, is to demonstrate your transferable skills. So have you volunteered to something? Have you did some time management or something? Have you organized a group or a camp or anything that you had somehow done in your past, even if you were a teenager or so, but that produced an important effect? They are looking for motivation. They are looking for other skills that you might have that might be useful on what you have, not only the hard skills, but of course, important ones.
Great. Those transferable skills are so important. Any tips on how to stand out with an application, seeing that there are more than 300 applications in one position, as you can see, or more? So any tips on being the standout person, especially through an applicant tracking system?
Yeah, I think other than what I mentioned about the idea of video and things like that, there's one interesting aspect that we do this in our business too, to attract attention of our potential clients. So something that you guys can parlay, I was just thinking about this as a candidate, is putting a post on social media about your expertise or things that you've learned within your space. It doesn't have to be, something revolutionary, but it's something that you just essentially sharing your ideas and your thoughts. So if you have Instagram, if you have Facebook, if you have LinkedIn, post things about things that interest you in the world of project management. If you learn something new, right? In terms of AI, in terms of technology, how does that help? And then put some opinions around that. Like, what is your opinion about it, right? And and then I would take some of those key posts and include that in your resume, because the employers will see, and this is actually validation in social media, that people will say, well, yeah, because nobody can make this up, right? You actually posting stuff, and find ones that more people like, right? Or get your friends to like it or something like that, and then post it, put it in your resume or put it in your application. That shows that you're actually taking interest in the not just the career, but also in the industry that you're applying for. That tells them that you are motivated about something like this, and then you are interested as well. So that could be an interesting angle to play, which employers could be very, very interested, because when as a employer and as a owner of a business, I've got a staff of 9 people. And we have a very strong social media strategy. We actually have a company that does all our posting and things like that. So whenever we go in front of a client, we always say, well, here's kind of our LinkedIn account here. And when they look at it, they'll see information and posts about the work we do. And that tells and shows credibility. So you guys can use a similar strategy for your own sake as an employee applying to an employer, and do that. And that may be an interesting one to kind of surface yourself to the top than other employees, other applicants.
What a great tip to add value, and of course to show that credibility and to show that exposure to potential employers and recruiters. Fantastic tip. Any other tip, David, to kind of stand out over 300 applicants?
I'm gonna insist on the networking part again. Again, it's not the only way, but it's one of the ways that you're gonna get there. But do networking looking for 2 things. One is to understand better about the organization and the environment, but also validate some ideas from your end. Now, what I'm saying with this, if you're going to meet someone, do some research. And the more time you spend, maybe the better. But just do not go there without knowing anything. Okay? They they want to fulfill that position with someone who is really interested, who's really into the position. So do the homework, get Google, get some information, do some research, think a little, how can you help them, and then validate those ideas and maybe say, yeah, I was thinking that we could do a project like this. Are you doing similar things? Or have you tried to do so? Be prepared for the conversation. I think that would demonstrate a lot. Okay.
Absolutely. I think it makes it easier on the mentor to help you. So how can I help you if you don't know how you can help yourself? So please help guide the mentor and they'll be more than happy to do that. So prepare, prepare, prepare. Absolutely. I guess one of the questions that we have is how can recent graduates work with Devant Group to be matched to their first job opportunity in Canada? So SBR, I'm going to send on the chat function my email address there, and I will look into that for you. I know that we have a lot of services and interviews, prep, resume prep, a lot of career counseling, but to be matched with their first job opportunity, I know that we have job fairs and events that international students can go to, but I know some schools are working with Devant and others are not. So, but please send me an email and I will follow up with you offline and provide you that answer for sure. So it looks like I think we've answered all these questions. We have around 6 minutes left. I do want to do a poll before we go. But before I do the poll, maybe perhaps I can ask David and Min, any final thoughts, sort of last minute nuggets for people to walk away and say, that was really interesting, that I really have to remember from David and Min. So any last minute thoughts and tips or nuggets that you would like to give to our student job seekers?
I just say don't get disheartened. Keep trying. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. It's a journey. It takes time. And I think we've had so many success stories that I've seen with my own eyes for students who have come through and been very successful, and now are strong professionals and are working with in decent roles in large organizations. So Canada has a lot of depth and breadth. You just gotta be patient with Canada.
Absolutely. David.
And I was just about to suggest the same thing. So
persistent.
no, fantastic. We are aligned. See, now keep trying. As Amin said, it's the journey, and do not put yourself down if you feel that the last conversation didn't went as you would like. Maybe it wasn't the right opportunity for you. Learn from it and do something different in the next one. So keep going, and very soon you're gonna have eventually your dream job. Eventually, the things you were not expecting to see, but then amazing opportunity was open to you. So keep trying, learn from the mistakes, and do better next time.
I love the messages of hope and positivity, because that it is true actually too as well. Thank you for those 2 tips. I'm gonna launch the poll, everyone. We just have one mini question. How would you rate this webinar? And I will. Canada does not disappoint. Absolutely. So please send us your feedback for today's session. Meanwhile, while we do that, I know there was one sort of question about standard pay rate. That's a very big question, because it really depends on the industry, the role, the level of seniority, all of that stuff. So I would just, again, suggest that you talk to a mentor look on LinkedIn, look on Indeed salary, Robert Half. David, do you have any thoughts about that as well? Salary
That was it.
research?
Glassdoor, LinkedIn are going to provide some estimates. So it's a good starting point.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So that ends our session tonight. Many, many thanks to David and Min. Thank you so much for your insights today, of course, for your time. And I do challenge all the audience job seekers out there to reach out to these two individuals to get sort of that insight and additional help as well. And thank you, both of you, for helping students move closer to their career goals.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful night, David and Min.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye. Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Thank you. Bye, Han. Thank you very much.
Bye, David. Ciao.